In August 2022, two rangers, Daniel Mollel and Peter and George, were patrolling along the Mara River in the Maasai Mara Reserve, Kenya, during the peak wildebeest migration season. Around 3 p.m., as they walked along the southern bank of the river, they heard several short, continuous roars coming from the other side. Through binoculars, Daniel saw a lioness and a few other members of her pride standing close to the river's edge, constantly looking down at the water. Initially, they thought the lions were having a failed hunt, but a few seconds later Peter spotted a pale yellow body being swept away by the current. Upon closer observation through binoculars, they determined it was a young lion cub, about a year old, and its chest was still moving very slightly. Because the area was quite shallow and there were almost no crocodiles around during the dry season, the two rangers decided to immediately approach and rescue them. Peter quickly removed some of his protective clothing and went into the water while Daniel stood on the shore monitoring the current and preparing the rescue rope. The water flow was quite strong due to heavy rains from upstream Tanzania that had fallen over the preceding days. It took Peter nearly 2 minutes to reach the lion, which was being swept away from the riverbank by the current. The animal was almost completely motionless and only reacted weakly when dragged into shallower water. From ashore, Daniel constantly watched the pride of lions on the other side to prevent them from swimming across or becoming agitated. However, the lions simply stood on the sandy shore, repeatedly emitting short calls towards the young lion cub in the water. Peter wrapped his arms around the animal's chest and slowly pulled it back towards the Kenyan side of the shore. After being brought ashore on the mudflat, the two rangers quickly checked his breathing and found it to be very weak. Daniel immediately performed chest compressions while Peter held the animal's head steady to prevent it from choking on water. About a minute later, the lion began coughing violently, and water dripped from its mouth. The two rangers continued to keep its body warm with rescue towels and checked its eye reflexes. Because the animal showed signs of recovery, they decided not to sedate it to avoid respiratory complications after the drowning. Peter then administered a dose of circulatory support and anti-shock medication from the veterinary kit he carried in his patrol car. Throughout the first aid process, the lions on the other side of the river stood still, watching and constantly looking in their direction. After about 10 minutes, the young lion began to move its front legs and try to lift its head off the ground. Once they saw that the lion was breathing steadily on its own, the two rangers backed away from the pickup truck to avoid further stressing it. The young lion lay still for a few more minutes before slowly standing up on the muddy ground near the water's edge. It turned its head to look across the Mara River, where the lions still stood along the golden sands in the late afternoon light. After a few short calls from the pride, the young lion let out a weak sound in response and began walking along the river. On the opposite side, the pride of lions was also moving in the same direction along the other bank, as if trying to find a shallower stretch of water to meet it again. Daniel and Peter decided not to intervene further because the animal was able to move and react completely normally on its own. As the sun began to set over the Maasai Mara grasslands, the two rangers returned to their patrol car and continued their journey along the river, the engine humming softly in the quiet afternoon.